Hello again, designers. This tutorial is going to go through the Pathfinder tools. So when we modify shapes or letters that have been made into shapes, so we've outlined it, sometimes the shapes that we want to make are kind of tricky. So the Pathfinder tool is a really awesome way to create some really nice shapes that are aligned. So we're going to start by making a simple crescent. So what I want you to do is make a perfect circle. So I'm going to come in, hold shift, and then I want you to duplicate that. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go to my selection tool, hold Alt, look for that copy to come up, and then I have two here. I want you to change this so that it's transparent on the inside and has a black stroke on the outside. Okay, so it's going to look like this when you're doing it. All right, so now that you have both of those, I want you to arrange the circles so they overlap each other to some extent. So I'm going to click and I'm going to move this one over, and I can kind of see where my crescent shape is going to start to come out. Now go ahead and select both of these circles. And they're not totally aligned. I'm going to move this one down just a little bit so I get them aligned. And then I'm going to select both of them. And then if you don't have Pathfinder open, you're going to go to Window, Pathfinder, and you're going to get this to come up. Okay, so there's different options in making different shapes. If we go to the first box with Unite, that's going to take out where they're overlapping and it's going to create a new shape based on that. So do Control Z to undo, and we're going to go to the second box, which is minus. And what happens when we do this is the shape that's on top of the other shape is going to act like a cookie cutter, so it's going to cut out the overlapping area. And in this case, it's going to make a crescent. So here we've got this nice crescent shape, and it's much easier to make, much smoother lines than trying to use the pen tool to make it. So I'm going to have you experiment with the other parts of the Pathfinders and what they do. And so we're going to do an undo. And to do this, make each of them a different color. So I'm going to go to my first circle and I'm going to do kind of this yellowy green color. And then I'm going to go to my second circle and I'm going to make it a darker green. And then for now, just keep the stroke on it, so a black stroke. So if we select the two of them, we can see once again, when we have the fill in there, we can see that it took the color from the front one and filled it to the back one. When we go back to minus, it's just going to show us that one shape only, so that cut out. When we do intersect, it's going to create a new shape from where those two shapes overlap. I'm going to do Control Z to undo, and exclude is going to take out wherever they're overlapping, it's going to take out that area and make a brand new shape from that. In the second row, the first one is divide. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to take multiple shapes. Wherever they overlap, it's going to combine them. So have both shapes selected. Click on them. It's hard to tell that anything has happened at this point, but what you can do is, if you go to your direct selection, then you can see that it's taken those paths and pulled them apart, and now we have this crescent shape alone, and we still have the circle. I don't love that there's a line there, so if we undo this, we can go to the next one over, and that does a very similar thing. It trimmed it, took away the outline. But now, once again, if I go to my direct selection tool, I have my crescent and my circle, so I didn't get rid of that. You also have the option, rather than going to your direct selection tool, so I have them both selected again. If I do the trim, I can, right now they're still acting as one object, but if I go up to Object and Ungroup, then I can use the regular selection tool, and it's going to be its own, so I don't have to use the direct selection every time. This is a good thing to get in a habit of, because I'm going to undo this process again, because if I do the trim, every time I go back to it with the selection tool and not the direct selection, it's going to select both of them. So doing object and ungroup is automatically going to do that. So whenever I use the selection tool, it's going to select the one that I want specifically rather than having to use the direct selection. Okay, one more thing that I want you to do is make, once again, a circle. Fill it with a color. Make another circle that's smaller. Fill it with a very different color. Move the smaller circle on top. You can see that there's a center point that shows me how to align it in the center. And then if I select both of these, then I can choose the second option and I can do minus, and you can see that it takes away that center. And similar to when we did the compound path, if I move this, that's just a transparent area. So I can move it on top of something and that middle becomes transparent. What else is really cool is you can start to use these with letters as well. So if I go to my type tool, I'm going to type in, we'll just do a K for now. I'm going to select it, go to the corner, hold shift, I'm going to make it bigger. I could come along with, I'm just going to do a circle for now. A circle, and then before I can do anything, I need to make my type into an object that I can edit. So I need to go to type, create outlines. Okay, then it brings up all those points. So then from here, if I have a design idea, I could come and I could either combine those together like this, so they're one path. I could do minus. Okay, so maybe I now have this shape for whatever my design makes sense. Going to come out and cut it out. So you can start to play with what it's going to happen. Some of these just don't make sense necessarily. This is kind of cool as well. So if we exclude that part, then once again, that can play in with my design, especially if I'm working on a logo. I'm going to make another letter. Let's do an R. Same thing, I'm going to make it bigger. I'm going to combine it with what I already have. So if I overlap this, and then I do object, or I'm sorry, type, create outlines. I'm going to select both of those, and I could do an exclusion there, and I'm starting to combine things together to create a logo idea. So a lot of different ways that you can use the Pathfinder. Something else that's really nice to be able to do, especially if you're using a Pathfinder, if you're working with a lot of things to make a pattern, is the Align panel. So what I want you to do is create multiple rectangles that can be different sizes. So make 4 or 5 of those. Let's go off the page a little bit. And then if you still have Pathfinder open, a lot of times Align is right next to it. Otherwise, you can find it under Window. And I want you to select all of those rectangles that you just made. When you do that, we can see on the top row, we can align. This one's going to be horizontal align to the left, or I can center them, or I can align it to the right. Okay. Once I decide maybe I want them all centered, I can also distribute them evenly from the top, from the center, or from the bottom. And so this is a really quick way to get things nice and even throughout here. So go ahead and try that. Align multiple rectangles. I don't expect you to remember what each of these does. A lot of it is oftentimes just trial and error. So if you know that you want to align things, you click on the align and see which one works best for what you're doing.